into it.
Yeah, that's also true. It seemed like they put a lot of money into it just based off of like what the trailer looked like. I was like, "Oh, this is
The
pretty
tr-
serious."
the trailer itself made Wheel of Time look
Yeah.
like a B movie. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, obviously you guys have a lot more faith in this Lord of the Rings adaptation than Wheel of Time.
I
But okay,
know.
cool,
I
cool.
know that's so true. Cuz I don't know if I ever got around to Wheel of Time just yet. I know it's still like on the list to do, but
It's
oh,
good. I like it. It's not like phenomenal or anything like that, but I'm a suck. I love the book, so I'm willing to I hope they keep going with it because I think it was really good.
yeah, is this like all new Lord of the Rings content? Is there any like book about this? Because I don't know much about Lord of the Rings outside of really just what I've seen and then The Hobbit. So I don't really know
Uh,
much.
I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna do their own take, if they're gonna follow I always butcher this word, the Silmarillion or whatever the book is
Mm,
called, where it's like stories of the Second Age. They may sort of do that.
mm.
I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. Gandalf could be in it because Gandalf was in Middle Earth from the beginning of time, so it'd be kind of cool if they brought him in, um,
I
even as
wonder.
like a cameo or something. But
You think they would use the OG or would they like Jude Laws like they did in Fantastic Beast?
I think they would use the OG if he's still around. Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen. I mean, he would totally jump at it probably. But the thing is, I, I can't say this for certain, but like I feel like I had read in the Silmarillion or something, but like they're ageless, right? Like Gandalf and
Oh
Saruman,
yeah, yeah.
and so they just kind of never they can't die unless killed. Like they're
Mm,
immortal basically, and so like they just kind of look the same all the
yeah.
time. Whereas like elves, like they naturally progress in age over hundreds of years, but they can't die either. They're immortal. Um, so they like stop at a certain age in
Because that
terms
was
of
the whole big
physical
thing about
development.
Aragorn's wife because she would become human. And so
She
like
would lose her
obviously that like
immortality.
yeah, that had its big because that was one of the bigger reasons why her dad wasn't accepting of everything, right? Because it would change who she is because her immortality is huge. And wasn't she
Right.
sick?
No, she wasn't sick. It was just that when she gave up her immortality, she gave up her I forget what it is, the light of uh, it's some fancy name. There's a
Mm,
scene I believe in the second or the third movie where her dad sees her and he's like, the light of whatever has faded within you, and she said, I choose
yep.
immortal life. I choose to live with Aragorn, and so she had already given up her immortality.
That
Um,
I do totally remember that scene too because he was like,
yeah,
"What's wrong? You look so different." And she's like, "Well, I'm not an elf, so that's
you're
fine."
not glowing like an angel anymore. What's going on?
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, thanks. You're aging. What's going
You're
on?
ugly now. What's wrong? It's like, wow,
Well,
cool.
it's so funny. That's actually one of the things I always really loved about Lord of the Rings was just the how long everyone in the world kind
Mm,
of lived, aside from humans. But like, I think after elves, dwarves lived the longest for like a couple hundred years, and then behind them were hobbits that lived up to like, you know, 200, and
yeah,
then humans, which like lived normal. And then Aragorn was
he was
half
older too,
elf.
wasn't he?
Yes, in the extended editions, he talks about how he's half elf, like he's not truly a like just human. So
Hmm.
he's 86 in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, jeez.
So he can live up to be like, I think it was like 500 or something like that is like the normal age for half elves,
Yeah.
um, or whatever the term was. I don't think it was half elf, but like he has elven blood within him. Um, and so he was 86, and like Frodo and Sam, they were, in their 60s or 70s, I think, in the
This is
books
so funny.
when because like in Hobbit life, like your adolescence is like age. Your adolescence doesn't end until you're like 50 or something like that.
That's so weird.
I know it's so great. For some reason, I dig it so much. Like I don't know why I love it. It's so, It's so stupid.
And they also are they the ones that have like the big feet too?
Halflings or hobbits?
Hobbits.
Yeah, they have big feet.
Yeah, that's so fun.
I know. It's one of the reasons why Lord of the Rings is my favorite series of all times. It's just, I love everything about it. Are we live?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It took me a minute to get things going, but I eventually got us live.
Nice. Welcome, everybody, as we talk about Lord of the Rings.
We promise, though, this is a Stranger Things season 4 spoiler everything. So I put in Discord that it's spoilers. The thumbnail to the video literally has the word spoilers on it. So if you haven't seen it and you listen in, this is all on you at this point.
Yeah, it's your fault if you don't get it at this point. Yeah, well, what's up, everybody? I'll introduce us real quick, but we are Calling All Nerds, and you have answered the call if you've joined us tonight. The beacon in the sky is lit. We are your friendly neighborhood hosts that talk about everything within the entertainment zeitgeist. And we are so excited to talk about some amazing stuff tonight. Particularly, we're centering tonight's podcast around Stranger Things. Season 4 and whatever else within Stranger Things we want to talk about, really. And it's been a minute, man. God.
Yeah.
Life has just been crazy, it seems like, the last few months for all of us involved.
Yeah, I think so this is episode 18. Our last episode was actually talking about Horizon Forbidden West versus Elden Ring. So still relatively, relevant, right? That was just in like March, but a lot of things
really
have been happening.
Nothing game-wise crazy has come out since then. It's been a pretty light year.
Yeah, and that was what, Max and I, we were traveling to Alaska about, was it 2 weeks now ago? And so we were chatting there, talking about how, like, what do we want to do? And then I said, you know what? Let's just maybe ditch some gaming for a little bit. I mean, we know that, like, Ragnarok is coming out in November, but that's November and it's only July. So it's, and I mean, I'm doing my thing. I just kind of play World of Warcraft and League of Legends, and, Max is probably playing
back to the old faithfuls.
Yeah. It's like, we're just kind of chilling. Nothing too new and exciting is coming out, especially because I think the most recent gaming news that I would say that we both have heard is that Starfield did get pushed, as well as their other game, that like vampire game or whatever it was. So it's like some stuff has just gotten pushed, not necessarily anything about like hyped. And I think there is some Switch console news, but that's still very like grapevine-y still. So it's nothing really like, yeah, they're getting a new Switch, but it's talks. It's just weird news right now.
Yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that. You're right. There's some kind of news in the zeitgeist that like they may be announcing the new Switch soon or something like that. Now that the Steam Deck has come out as like a handheld competitor. Yeah. Even though the Steam Deck still can't go past 1280p. It's fine.
Yeah,
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
There's still handheld limitations.
I can't wait till everything's just naturally OLED 4K handheld. I can't wait.
Oh, I know. What a world.
Right. No, seriously. Yeah. I think honestly, the only gaming news I have for this month are like Stray comes out next week where you get to play as a cat.
Oh, yeah, true.
That looks kind of cute. I mean, I'd love to have another PS5 game because there's 10 in the last 2 years, which is really bizarre of any consequence. And so it'd be kind of nice to have a good PS5 game to play.
Yeah, we were both kind of bummed by the PlayStation Game Pass thingy. Like it was okay. It has room for improvement. So yeah, we've just been like, what are we going to podcast about? And so then when we were traveling, it was that time of where Stranger Things, the season part of it, like the episode part, had just finished. Yeah. And then they were doing their 2-episode like movie style finale. So we're like, hey, let's, Max texted me. He was like, you want to do some spoiler Stranger Things? And I said, yeah, I love Stranger Things. Let's chat about that. Oh yeah, Peter did say Sonic Frontiers. It's kind of some gaming news. There's a little Sonic thing coming out
that open world Sonic game.
Yeah, it looks interesting. It looks interesting, but maybe maybe next time, hopefully soon, we will have a kind of regularly scheduled gaming news podcast. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about Stranger Things. And I think specifically season 4, right? We're just going to kind of hit up on the
Yeah.
season 4 for the most part. We'll probably talk about previous seasons as we review it and stuff. But our primary focus is season 4, which came out about a month ago now, month and a half.
Yeah, almost almost exactly a month ago, if not before that. Part like volume 1 of season
Yeah.
4 came out in June, and then part 2, the final 2 episodes, which tally together to be 4.5 hours long,
Yeah.
which is crazy, came out on July 1st.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's right.
the show concluded 14 days ago. So it's still pretty fresh.
In beautiful Netflix fashion, it came out all together. Volume 1 was was it like 6 or 7 episodes? Just given
7
to
episodes,
you.
yeah.
And then volume 2, both like movies, just bam, given to you in amazing Netflix fashion. Even though Netflix is literally trying to change everything about them that sucks. And so it's like, oh, great. Netflix is trying to go under and like shoot themselves in the foot. But they know what they're doing.
As long as Netflix doesn't die until Stranger Things is over, I'm fine. They can do whatever they want after that.
I know, for real though. But so your overall like thoughts. What was just like your overall opinion of season 4 as a whole? Like what did you think? Good, bad, medium? What was it?
Oh, I thought it was great. I mean, I feel like Stranger Things is consistently great to me. I really feel like the show does a really great job of, I wouldn't say reinventing itself every season, but every season feels distinct. Like it feels different. You know, like every season. This season felt more adult than any season previous to it, which makes sense because you're growing with the kids. They're all in high school now, or older. You know, past high school for the what's the young adult group now that we have like separate groups of kids and group. And it just felt more serious this time around. You know, I think that, which makes sense. We're nearing the end game, quote unquote. Like, you know, this is kind of the season before the final season, which usually, in typical story fashion, the season before the final season, or the final movie before, you know, the middle movie, whatever have you, like it always kind of ends on a dooming cliffhanger of like, oh, things are not good. Like, you know, like, and so I knew it would probably end in a place where our heroes are really battered. I still felt like they really towed the line there really well, to a point of like, it still brought me to tears multiple times in the finale. Gave me moments of hope and like uplifting moments in the midst of all the crazy and the sadness. But overall, I felt like the season was really good. I wouldn't say it's my favorite season. I still think that season 3. I love season 3 so much, mainly because I felt like it was still stressful, but I felt like it was the funniest season. And my favorite part of Stranger Things is the humor. I feel like the moment where you can laugh with the characters is the best part about the show. They just, I've never seen another show that intermingles horror with comedy as well as this does. Like, and I think that's why it's palatable for multiple people that typically don't like horror. They can really relate to it in the characters. So overall, I would say the season was great. I loved it. Not my favorite season, but I think it was fantastic for what it was. What about you?
Yeah, I think I totally agree that season 3 was my favorite. I think Stranger Things does amazing with their storyline, like their core storyline, like the upside down kind of thing is like really strong. But I think their like slice of life content is what I'll call it. That's their best for me. Like I love the Steve interactions, because, you know, also my favorite pairing really is Steve and Henderson. Like their season 3 was just like really strong. And I also loved, like, I thought Robin was a great character to introduce and stuff.
Oh,
And so I do
phenomenal.
feel like who they paired together in season 3, which for the most part was still about the same people that they paired together in season 4, but like season 3 was just so strong. But I think that cinematography wise, season 4 was incredible.
Oh my
Their new
gosh.
character that they added, Eddie, was like so cool. And then he was just so awesome. And then
Oh, I love
yeah,
Eddie.
like that last 2 episode movie style, when I watched it, I was like, this is crazy that these are kids acting. And I mean, like, I know that the youngest crew, I think they're like 18 to 20 is their range.
Right
And then
now, yeah,
obviously
in
like
real life,
everybody
yeah.
else is like a little bit older, which still
Mhm.
means that when they started, they were like literally like young teens. And so
Yeah,
like to
like 13,
see,
14.
yeah, and to see like how far they've come was just so good. But I thought that Vecna was a really cool enemy. I thought
Mhm.
the Vecna twist of who he ended up being, which we'll get into more of this in a second, but the twist that they had, I thought was really cool. I did love who they paired together. I think they meshed very good characters together, especially because like it was weird because in the start of the season, you like wanted some people to be together who weren't, and then you're like, oh, they need to be together, and then they finally did get back together, and you're like, oh, cool, finally, like they needed to be together, and like, so
Yeah.
I thought it did a good job because pacing wise, I was nervous. At first, I was like, okay, there's 6 episodes, 6 or 7 episodes, and then there's two like longer, pretty much films
Movie
at the
length
end.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you start out, you get the precedent going of like who the victim is, and it was slow in a way. I was like, okay, wait, there's a lot going on, a lot of questions that are happening, a lot of build up on like who Vecna is and like why is he killing, what's the purpose of him. So at first I was nervous because I said, how are they going to complete this? And by the end of the final episode of volume 2, I was like, that was amazing. They did pacing really well. I 100% understand why the last 2 are as long as they are. They
They
needed
took
to
their
be that
time.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
they
did.
do. I think the amount of characters that we have now, it's just impossible
Oh,
to wrap this up
yeah.
in a good way um in 9 episodes. You
Yeah.
know, like if they were all 45 minutes long like in the first season. It's like there's no way.
Oh,
There's no
yeah,
way
yeah,
they
yeah.
could have done it
Definitely
in a way.
not.
And there was no storyline in my personal opinion. There was no storyline that felt um half baked. Like I felt like,
Yeah.
well, I do have thoughts about that actually. There is one storyline that I was not a fan of overall, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So
But
I thought overall season 4 was really good. I think for me it's like a season 3 is probably the top. I really enjoyed um 1 a lot, and then I would say probably season 4 and then season 2 would kind of be like
yeah,
my little hierarchy, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was really
that's
good.
exactly mine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it
exactly
was
mine
really
too.
good. So, but I guess we can kind of maybe take it into sections. So if we want,
Yeah,
maybe like we can start off with like the villain, right? So Vecna, how did you feel? Because Vecna was, we'll say new, because he kind of looks like he's been around as far as like the whole background scene. Like he's kind of been in the scene, hidden in a way. And but as far as season 4 goes, he was a quote unquote new villain. How did you feel he like looked, acted, voicing? Like, did you feel like he was a strong villain for what should have been their like epic moment of of the series?
I think he was. I really dug Vecna the moment he appeared in episode 1. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this guy is like very. We're going down the route of like Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's like when he grabs a hold of you, whoever you are, like you don't know if you're in a living nightmare or if you're sleeping. Like all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, life is not as it seems. And I remember when he grabs Chrissy as the first victim,
Mm-hmm.
which was so sad. I
Oh
loved
gosh, yeah, and
Chrissy and
terrifying.
Eddie's like Chrissy and Eddie's like interaction. I was like, oh my gosh, these two have great chemistry. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this would be such a cool pairing. Um, and just how tragically and brutally she's killed.
Yeah.
I literally my jaw dropped because I was like, I was surprised, and that's why I say like this show feels more adult than it ever has. That
Yeah.
was probably the most graphic Stranger Things had ever gotten up to this point, and
I mean,
obviously
she
they did
was
it again with other
mangled,
characters and other
like
victims.
straight up mangled, eyes ripped
Like,
out, bones just
right,
cracked. I mean, yeah, she
like
was very graphically murdered.
yeah, she was very graphically murdered, and like I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
like this is a whole nother level for Stranger Things. Like this felt like like the first time it felt like an R rating kind of
Yeah.
thing. I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap. Like it was effective, and
Hmm.
it was there for a purpose. It was there to like show like this guy's not messing around, you know, whereas like in previous seasons, the villain was always the mind flayer in different aspects, or at least we thought it was the mind flayer.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, he would always appear in different ways. Like in season one, really the main villain or the main like upside down monster was the Demogorgon, which is just a monster. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
in season two, Will is taken over by the mind flayer in Exorcist style.
Hmm.
Um, but it's still like a villain they're able to push back
Yeah. Because there also
fairly.
are like those like demo dogs, right? They're still like monsters
Yeah,
that exist in the physical
and
world.
right, and so, but like, and then in season three, it was a physical manifestation of the mind flayer
Hmm.
coming into the real world.
Very
But
spider
it's
like
still,
form or whatever it was.
yeah. But I think what was crazy was like in every season, I never feared for the kids' lives. Like it
Yeah.
makes sense to me when like Billy died after everything
Hmm.
he's done and after everything he's gone through. I was like, that felt right to me.
Yeah.
You know, uh, Bob,
Oh,
Sean
yeah.
Astin from
Yep.
season two. I loved his character, but that felt right to me. I was like, okay, yeah, like I
Yeah.
get it. Um, I don't think anyone of true consequence died in season one that I can think of. It's been so
No,
long
I
since I
think
watched
so. I
the
just watched season one recently.
show.
Season one was a lot of those like
Yeah,
side characters, like the guy who ran the diner, he died, and it was a lot of
yeah,
like that
but
kind of character, just very
yeah,
random for the most
I
part.
always, yeah, and I always associate every season. They have tropes in every season that play to horror movies or
Yep.
supernatural movies. Season one is very ET.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like 11 is this supernatural
Yep.
being that's kind of shown up in these little kids' lives, and there's super agents coming out of the
Yeah.
woodwork. Papa, showing up to try and get her back. Matthew Modine, who's amazing. And then season two is very Exorcist, where
Hmm.
it's Will kind of being taken over by the mind flayers. And then season three, um, in season three, I didn't get much of a. It was almost like the thing with the
Well,
mind flayer.
surprisingly enough, too, season three was almost very Russian heavy. Like you kind of
Yeah,
understood the Russian influence and was like, okay, yeah, I get it. Time frame wise,
yeah,
like this is when
85.
Russia's pretty scary and stuff. And like, so I felt like
And
almost that was a villain in itself of season three was
right.
just Russia and them being weird and the KGB and all that kind of stuff.
What's funny too is season three, it was very Terminator because there was that guy, that Russian guy that kept like he was just like indestructible.
Oh,
You know what
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
talking
I
about? Where
forgot
like
of, yeah. He was
he
chasing
just kept
Hopper and
showing up.
stuff. Oh, he was weird. It
Yeah,
was,
he
that's
was
so
weird, but
true.
he was like, oh, that's like the Terminator. Like in my
Yeah,
head, I
it's
was like, oh
funny.
yeah, it's Terminator.
That is funny.
And yeah, and then really with season four, it's when we hit Nightmare on Elm Street, and I feel like
Very Freddy
in a
Krueger.
way, it's the first true horror
Yeah.
in that aspect that we've seen in this show to date. And this is the first time, like when Vecna did that to Chrissy, in a sense, it was like, at least to me, it was like the directors and the writers saying a line has now been crossed
Yeah.
and no one is safe
And we're not
anymore.
going back. Like that
And
was
we're not
also the
going back.
vibe.
Right.
It's like
Like it's almost
we
like,
cracked that barrier. We're in and out, baby. Let's go.
right, these kids are in high school, they are
Yeah.
past their adolescence. Like we are done playing around. Like
Yeah.
Vecna is done playing around. He's like, I'm just gonna do this myself. And
Yeah.
I don't care who I need to kill. I'm gonna make I'm gonna win this. And he does. He
Yeah.
wins. Um He does what he accomplishes what he sets out to do. And like I love the line that he says to 11 in the finale where he's like, I've already won. Now all I want you to do is watch.
Yeah.
And just like watch what happens. Like and you know, it was just kind of, it was sad because I really loved Chrissy already. Honestly, I feel kind of awkward for saying it. For some reason I thought she was pregnant. Like I was like, like she's throwing up in the bathroom.
She was
and
sick.
Like,
yeah.
Stressed out, and Jason's her boyfriend, and he's like the super like star of the basketball team. And
Kind
my
of
mind
a
went,
douche.
right, a terrible person. And like my mind just kind of went. My mind thought it was going in a different direction, where I was like, oh, maybe she'll fall in love with Eddie, but she's pregnant, and maybe he'll get in trouble for that or something. I don't know, but like I did not see it going 0 to 60 as fast as it did in the first episode. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. I think Vecna is an amazing villain with his true identity of being the very first child,
first person
of telekinesis powers. The story, they did a very good job of defining his story and how we get there.
And they did use same actor, which I thought was great. Like when they do the flashbacks to show he's a very awkward person, the way he acts. And it's very cool to see from his acting perspective. Like as an actor, he did so good because I didn't even notice that One and Vecna were the same people until that was finally given. And I think a lot of that does equate to his acting. I mean, Vecna, obviously they altered his voice. They made him look, crazy. I mean, if you look at our thumbnail, that is Vecna, the main guy in the center. And like his character is just this incredible. So I had no idea. And the fact that he can act as Vecna, be creepy, scary, but then act as One who is kind of awkward, but you feel for him because it almost feels like he has like a little of abuse going on, and he's kind of trying to make friends with 11. But then when he snaps in the flashback and he's the murderer the whole time, and then he's the one who turns into Vecna, it's like, whoa, like I don't know how old he is or what other things he's done, but he did really good as a villainous actor in this series.
I can tell you, I'm trying to remember the actor's name. He's mainly been in, well, a lot of the kids actually, I didn't realize this until this season when I looked it up, but a lot of the kids are Broadway babies. A lot of the main cast are
they
all
really
from Broadway.
are. They really are.
And he actually is a singer as well. He was in Sweeney Todd and played, I don't know if you ever saw that one with Johnny Depp.
I did.
He plays the kid that fell in love with his daughter. And he's like, when he sings Joanna.
Anthony?
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, he plays Anthony.
Oh, you're right.
Sweeney Todd.
Jamie Campbell Bower. So he's 33. Wow.
Yeah, he's close to my age. He's a little older than me.
Well, he's great. He's a good actor. He's a really good actor.
The minute I realized he was amazing was in the finale, when this whole time you think he's kind of an ally to 11, or like not even, I would say an ally. You kind of can know from the get-go when you see him, when she starts doing these flashbacks with Papa, you're like, okay, this guy's going to be a problem. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like he's not going to be a good guy. But yeah, he had this, I always think back to the line from Severance where he's like, you need to have kind eyes. Can you give me kind eyes or something like that?
Yeah.
And something happens in the finale, amazing facial acting, where he can give off this like kindness, this gentleness when he's talking to 11. And then when he realizes, when the curtain's drawn and 11 sees him for who he truly is, the acting is all in his eyes. Like all of a sudden, like he just looks incredibly sinister, and his face kind of distorts a little bit into this like kind of demonic look. And he shows his true colors in that moment, but it's like he almost looks like a completely different person. From when he was just being gentle with her a few scenes ago. And it's just like, oh my, like that's acting right there. Like that's incredible. Like I watched a lot of interviews and read a lot of articles after the show, and because I'm a nerd and that's what I do when I love these shows. But I remember reading an article where they were interviewing him, and the first time that uh, Indy, or I forget her name, the 11 actress.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. Was it Millie Bobby Brown?
yeah, Millie Bobby Brown. I always want to say Billy Bob Thornton. It's not. It's Millie Bobby Brown.
Little different.
But she said that the first scene that she ever shot with him in his Vecna attire was the final scene in the Upside Down, where he has Max, and he's like holding her side, and she literally was so scared that she was sobbing,
Mm.
and they had to cut, and he had to like talk her down and be like, "It's me, don't worry, like it's me." Like she was terrified.
Dang.
And so that scene when he's like right up like to her face, when she's like held against the door, like that's true fear in her. It's like that's like one of the first takes that they had of like she was terrified of him in that outfit. And
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, it was insane, man. I was like, oh, I love stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah. Vecna was he was a cool boss for sure, and it was definitely interesting. Oh, can you still hear me? You cut out.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm
Okay,
just
cool.
turning the light on.
Oh, gotcha.
Starting to get dark.
Yeah, he is a good villain, and it was cool because like you were talking about how instead of these previous where you would have almost like a physical being in like the real world, this was very Freddy Krueger, and like he really only existed in our case in the Upside Down, and that was just like a really cool concept because even though he wasn't there in the physical world, he was literally more dangerous than anything else that we had seen up to that point. And like,
Yeah.
so we learn more about Vecna because we do find out that he is one. And then we also find out that, like one of the main places of interest for season 4 was Vecna's old house when he was a kid. You find out, and which for people who are interested in, obviously, if you've seen the show, you'll learn more. If not, I totally encourage you to watch it and stuff. But so, the setting is placed. We're in this house. You hear a story about like a serial killer. He's the one, some man used to live in this house. He murdered his wife and daughter and tried to harm the son. And, you find out all that's a lie, and that the whole time the son, who was probably like maybe 7 or 8 or something, is actually the one
sociopath.
He's just crazy. He's the one that murdered his mom and his sister, and he harmed his dad to make him pay. And like really what just happened is that because he used his power so much and so not fully trained, it just wore him out. That's why he went into a coma. It had nothing to do with the dad. I think like the news articles stated that like the dad strangled the son, or like the shock of everything made the son go into a coma. No, he just used his powers so much as like an 8-year-old that he went into a coma. And then Creep Master Supreme, the doctor, gets his hands on him and like starts doing his little experiments. And it's very interesting because you have his character who, yes, is like a sociopath, and it mixes him with the doctor, which is a very like fuel plus flame. Like Vecna, do we know his name? I don't even know if I paid attention besides being one. I forgot what his name was.
Henry.
So you have Henry, who truly is like kerosene. That is like his thing. And this doctor is almost just like a match. He's just constantly sparking because he almost prods at these kids, because you see in so many flashbacks more this time of like what 11 went through as a child, and how she was also like her powers didn't necessarily blossom at the right time. Everybody around her had more telekinesis powers than she did. But you just see what this doctor does, and he's just annoying. He's just, like I say, he's like a spark, and that spark lit Henry. And like, because it was so intense, one, they had to suppress Henry's power because the doctor was like, bro, you're insane and you're probably the most powerful thing I've ever seen. You're literally
Dangerous.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, you're the start of it all. And so like we gotta suppress you. And sure enough, when it gets removed, this doctor just keeps on fueling all these flames, and it's like, what the heck?
And speaking of Papa, because I can never remember his real name. I think it's like,
Yeah, I don't know. He's weird.
yeah, I just call him Papa. Um, I think he's one of the remaining mysteries for me.
Yeah, they
Unless I
didn't really
can get it
answer
right,
it.
is like he dies without telling Eleven why he was so
You really
against
don't learn
her.
about the why. I thought that was interesting that it wasn't answered
Yeah.
in season 4.
Well, I think they're leaving that for season 5 because one of the
Mm,
biggest things we still don't know is we don't know how the Upside Down came to be. We know
correct.
that,
It was there when one gets pushed in.
right, he is definitely in control of the main forces in there. With his powers, he was
Yeah.
able to do that, like take control of the Mind Flayer, the big smoke monster thing. Um, we learn he's behind that, and that
Yeah.
he formulate it into like a spider look because he loved spiders. Um, but we don't know how the Upside Down came to be. We don't know how Henry came to be in the clutches of Papa after his parents died, but somehow Papa knew what he was.
Yeah, he knew that it
And
was like almost his fault for the murder of his mom and sister.
yeah, and so those are the remaining mysteries for me.
Mm,
What is the Upside Down? How do we destroy it for good? Because I truly feel like this show, the story can't end until the Upside Down is gone for good.
it has to. Yeah.
Until it's not a threat to Hawkins
Because it
anymore.
just wouldn't make sense. Because there'd always be that
Right.
looming. Because even, I mean, Vecna, in a way, he saw that being that was inside of inside the Upside Down. In
Yeah.
theory, that being could still be the ultimate puppet master, right? And it's like, yeah, unless that Upside Down is gone, even if you defeat Vecna, is it like a shrug? Like, as long as the Upside Down's there, it could still be a threat. You never know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange, but yeah, we still know what the Upside Down is or how it came to be. We don't know why it's stuck on the day that Will
Oh,
disappears.
yep.
In the past, and so those are the questions for season 5, right? Like now
Yeah.
that the Upside Down has, um, successfully, like Henry's goal was to merge the Upside Down with the real world so that he
Yeah.
could use the demons and the monsters and take
Yeah.
over the world, or do whatever he wanted. Like he says, like
Start over or something was
he
so
wants it
weird.
to be. Well, he finds the Upside Down and he sees it as right.
Yeah.
I forget the exact line he says, but he says like he felt like it was a world that made sense to him.
Yeah, because it wasn't
And so
tainted by humans.
by
That was like
humans.
his
And so,
biggest
like,
thing.
his whole goal is to eliminate humans. And so it's like it makes sense. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take the Upside Down and I'm going to invade the real world with it, which has been what the Upside Down has been trying to do for the past 3 seasons, and now at the end of season 4 has successfully broken in, like, to a point that the world cannot ignore it anymore.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
cannot, I mean, it'll be crazy to me if this whole show ends and the real world is just like, a volcano was hidden underneath Hawkins.
Bro, and
Even in the show,
so
it's like
annoying.
it's been 2 weeks since Hawkins, Indiana was completely disrupted by an earthquake, a level 7, or I forget what they say, like a level 7
Yeah.
earthquake. I'm like, y'all, are you seeing like the black smoke that's erupting from the
Dude.
ground?
Or like the tendrils that are legit coming out of the ground and like
And-
crawling up the sides of buildings.
and I get that it's a running gag, and that Mrs. Wheeler, Mike's mom, is the
Oh my
only
gosh.
adult that truly is like every season seeing more and more of the truth of what's going on. But yeah, it's getting to a point where it's kind of ridiculous. Honestly,
Bro,
that's
yeah.
I would say if there's any flaw with this show that makes me roll my eyes, it's how the world is perceiving everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And I get it though, because if they didn't perceive it that way, it wouldn't allow the kids and the main characters to have the freedom that they have to go around doing the things that they do to try and stop it, right?
Yeah.
And and I do feel like the show does a great job of like every season Hawkins is becoming a little more volatile because they say
Mhm.
like this town they're people are starting to say this town is cursed. In the very first episode they hold a memorial for all of the people that died in season 3 that were taken over by um Billy and
The
the
mind.
mind flayer,
Yeah.
and they were talking about how many students were killed, how many adults, and it's like, whoa, like there are consequences happening here. This is cool. But then you get close to the end of volume 1 and Jason gets in front of the town
Oh
hall,
my
and
gosh, that was the worst scene of the
that was the
whole
worst scene in the
series.
whole series. I was like, this makes no sense to me. Like, how is he literally riling this town up
Oh my
to go on a
gosh.
witch hunt for these kids
Yeah, with like weapons and like get
with
your guns and
weapons?
pitchforks, and if you find these 14-year-olds, shoot on sight. It's like, are you
Right,
kidding
with their
me?
parents in that room, and they're not even like standing up to defend their children. They're just
That
like,
bothered me too. I was like, none of these
like what's
parents are
going
literally
on?
about to stand up and say, no, the Hellfire Club is literally D&D.
D&D.
It's the
Well,
nerdy thing my son does in the basement of my house.
well, and I get it because during that time, there was even a movie I think that Tom Hanks was in around 85, 86 when D&D started, or in the 80s, where the world did think D&D meant you were like kind of following like demonic forces. Like there was a time
Uh,
when like people truly believed that. And so I know it was like a play on that,
yeah.
but it just felt so ridiculous to me. I was
Yeah.
like, this doesn't make sense.
No.
Like the extreme that is the one thing about the show that makes me roll my eyes sometimes is they take some of the caricatures and the characters to such an extreme level where I'm like, okay, that's not like even in a show that's not realistic whatsoever with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
monsters and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
still feel like that doesn't feel real. Like that doesn't
Mhm.
feel natural to
Yeah.
have this kind of conversation right now.
Yeah, it's like, how did
Yeah.
this 17-year-old just rile up a bunch of like probably 30 to 40 plus year old people in a town meeting to say, all right, well, the real fault is these kids. Go find them and take them in. It's like, okay. Or like
Because
how,
he's because he's a
like
beautiful
when
white boy who
it's
has
so
who's
like,
a basketball
what?
star.
Like, remember when the guy, it's like the random guy who discovers the kids at the house, like he notices it being weird, and so he's the one that tells the basketball kids like, oh, I think I found the people you're looking for. It's like, bruh, like I don't think this 40 something year old dude really would go to these kids and say,
No.
I found who you're looking for. Like, no, you
So,
don't report to these kids. You don't actually probably care about
oh,
these. It was so weird. But yes, so
so dumb.
I would agree with you. That's really where the weird disconnect. That scene alone is probably the worst scene of the whole series. Was that
Yeah.
like town hall meeting with annoying white boy to like rally them all up? But
Right.
and like in a way, obviously he too was a villain. And I will say when he died, I just didn't care. I was like, okay, kind of, I thought it was great when Lucas finally just punched the crap out of him, because man, was he annoying. Now, I'll say though too, acting wise, he did do a good job. He really
Oh,
did
yeah.
play that kind of like douchey kind of white guy in the school, and then by the end, he was pretty crazy himself, and he really lost it. And I'll give him props to that. The actor alone did a great job to say, okay, I got to act like a preppy dude, and now I got to act like a crazy guy. Like,
Right. I
he
gotta
did
act
it
like a
good.
sociopath
He
now.
sold his acting so well. He really was like okay, someone needs to punch this guy to shut him up, and they did, and it was nice.
Yeah, it's weird, because in some ways I've seen people compare him to Billy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Billy has more. He had more. Well, one, he was in the show longer. He had a
Yeah.
lot more development of like you
Oh
could
yeah. They really.
sympathize with him.
Yeah, they
Like
did.
you can see how the rough edges came to be.
Yeah, especially
And
when
honestly,
11 went into his memories and you see, how he
oh,
loved his mom and that his dad is literally just a jerk of all
I
jerks.
I cry every time she's
Oh,
talking to him about his
yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
But like with Billy, yeah, he was just a tragic character. But like I will say, in season 2, Billy was just awful. Like I was
Oh yeah.
like, dude,
Yep.
this guy's gotta go. Like
Yeah.
he is a racist.
Yeah. Yep.
He is physically abusive to his sister-in-law. I was like, why do people like this character? And then all of a sudden in season 3, everyone loved Billy,
Yeah.
even though he was still the villain.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how amazing that actor is that he can pull that off. But yeah, I totally forgot about that until this season because another interview I watched with the actor that plays Lucas, Caleb McLaughlin, everyone was like, "Wow, Jason is probably the most terrible character ever," and he's like, "No, Billy was a straight up racist, and he stayed away from his sister." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
true." And he was like, Jason was a bad person. He just had a hero complex that went wrong.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's
"Yeah,
true.
you're kind of right."
It is
Like,
true.
he just
And
lost his
honestly,
way.
if nothing happened to Chrissy, I don't think he would have cared anyways. It just didn't matter.
No.
Like Billy was literally targeted by the Flare, right? Or by Vecna, whoever maybe the real person was. So it's like he truly was targeted. If nothing happened to Chrissy, he probably wouldn't have mattered. He probably wouldn't have cared to try to be involved in what was going on.
I actually don't know if Billy was specifically targeted. I remember he went to that warehouse to meet up with Mrs. Wheeler when she was thinking about.
No, he was supposed to
cheating
go
on
to
her
the
husband.
motel. So he was going to go to the motel, and then on his way, he thought that he saw something in the road and it stopped him. And then, yeah, he got targeted. He totally got targeted. And I think it's because of the darkness, because Vecna targets that darkness. And I think because of so much abuse from his father and the sadness of losing his mom, or at least her just not being in his life, I think it's why he was an easy target, because he was strong physically. And I think Vecna needed that because he didn't have that strength yet, because he's being fueled by all this stuff, but he wasn't there. And so like he saw Billy as like, okay, he is a strong physical person that I need in the real world, and he has a lot of pain, and that's how he gets his energy. So
yeah,
at least I'm pretty sure that's like how that was
taken. I trust your process of that, because you've watched season 3 recently, whereas I haven't.
Yeah.
So you're probably absolutely right. Then that makes sense to me, honestly. So.
But yeah, so I mean, like Vecna was cool, a great villain. But then I liked okay, so of the new cast, and some of them were pretty temporarily, like who did you feel had like a really strong like new cast member? Like Eddie was, I thought Eddie was probably the best of like the new cast. I mean, you see him, he seems he's like kind of nuts, but he's like this D&D guy, and then you realize, okay, like he's really sweet, he has a kind heart. They really instill that early on, because he truly is trying to help Chrissy, and it's not like he's forcing anything. Like he's trying to sell her some weed to help her because she's stressing, but he also isn't like a guy who's like, oh, do drugs. He's also like you don't have to buy this, like it's okay, like if you're not comfortable, don't do something you're not comfortable with. And you're like, oh, like he's sincere, and obviously his death is like insane. His Master of Puppets thing is the coolest thing ever, of him playing the guitar. So like for me, Eddie definitely was the strongest and the best new cast. But like outside of him, like who else do you feel like made a good impact that was new?
It's hard to say. I mean, Eddie really stole the show for me in terms of new characters. We definitely had a few new characters this season. I thought Argyle was fun. I just felt like he was very one note.
Which one was he?
He was the stoner.
He was the stoner. Okay, yeah.
And I really enjoyed him. I thought he was funny, and I liked him. It just, they didn't really do much with him. With Argyle.
He was comedic relief, and that was like kind of about it.
It was kind of about it. So honestly, for me, the only one of consequence is Eddie in terms of new characters, because everyone else in the show that was on it outside of the main cast were returning guests, like Dr. Owen or Matthew Modine as Papa. I don't think, unless I'm totally blanking. No. Yuri and Enzo.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say Enzo was probably mine as far as like a supporter kind of new.
yeah,
I thought him and yeah, Yuri. Like Yuri, you got annoyed at a lot because he keeps on betraying but not betray. Very
he
aggravating. But
was fun though.
Enzo, like I was like, whoa, this is kind of cool because you
Yeah.
look at him and you're like, okay, he's a typical Russian guard, but he's kind of just looking
Mhm.
out for himself. But then he develops almost like he likes Hopper, even though, he's just kind of using him. And then you're like, oh, wait, dang. Like now that they're both stuck in this prison as prisoners, they kind of developed Enzo a little bit more. And I'll be honest, the whole time I was like, I hope he doesn't betray him because I really like him. I was like, he's a cool character, and I hope he doesn't betray Hopper in them.
Enzo is great. It's funny, as a Game of Thrones fan, that actor is in Game of Thrones. He
Mm-hmm.
plays oh, what does he play? Oh, I always forget the name. The Two-Faced Man or something like that. He's the
Yeah.
character that like a girl doesn't say these things anymore. Like he always talks in the second person in Game of Thrones. I
Yeah, I'm
forget.
looking it up. So his name is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Tom
Tom
Lalot.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that. um, so it looks like, let's see, his role as Jaquen Hagar.
Jacqueline Hagar, that's
Him.
it.
That is his
Faceless
Game of
man.
Thrones person. But yeah, so he
Yeah, he's
he was
great.
cool. He was a very good new cast member for sure. And yeah,
Yeah,
Yuri, like how did you feel about kind of the back and forth with Yuri? Because you introduce Yuri, he's just kind of like the middleman, not too surprised that he betrays, and like, but I don't know, like, how did you feel like when they kept kind of flip flopping? Because they kind of do this like, I will help, I'm not going to help, I will help, I'm not going to help, I will help. Like, how did you feel that was like?
I loved it. I Yuri was this kind of chaotic force that was honestly needed in
Chaotic neutral for
the adult
sure.
storyline. I feel like if he wasn't in it, I mean, Murray was obviously the comedic
Mm,
force in the adult storyline.
yes.
But Yuri had this chaotic, like you never really knew what he was going to do. Kept switching, like you said, back and forth. I loved him. He was such a ham. Like he
He
was like
was.
he was just this guy that had a charming smile that just every word out of his mouth was just bull crap. Like you could
And
not
him
believe a single
interacting.
word
Who's
he
the
said.
American? I always forget his name. It's like Hopper and Joyce's
Murray?
friend. Is that Murray?
The one with the black beard that has the black
Okay,
belt in
yeah.
karate
So
or whatever.
Murray and
Murray.
Yuri,
Yeah.
like the way them two
Yuri.
interacted with each other was probably the best comedy interaction between anyone in season 4. Like
Oh,
they were so funny together.
they were hilarious. Yeah, I loved Yuri. I mean, I'm glad he did the right thing in the end. Like when
Yes.
when
Oh
they show
yeah.
up in Katinka, the helicopter, and he's just grinning down at them like, "Hey, it's like I did the right thing."
Oh
Hey.
man,
And I was
so
like, "Heck yes,
funny.
Yuri,
That's
you rock,
so
man."
funny. Yeah.
Yuri's that kind of character that like even if he I don't think he'll show up in season 5. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Couldn't care if he
But
did.
right. Well, I wouldn't care, but I would still be like he's that kind of character where it's like you love to hate him, but you also love him if he does the right thing. Whereas just like
Yeah.
you're just you're just insane,
Well,
bro.
it's funny
But,
because
I
like,
love every second of it.
when you make a D&D character, literally part of your character creation is, are you chaotic neutral, bad or evil? Or sorry,
And he's
are you
chaotic
neutral,
neutral.
good or evil? It's like, yeah, like he is a definite chaotic neutral. And then you have like Murray, who's
yeah.
definitely like chaotic good. You got Hopper, who's more lawfully good. Like you can really see those
Yeah.
character tropes because yeah, it's D&D, it's meant to. And so when you
Right.
have these
D&D is the underlying of this whole story.
yeah. And so when you have these chaotic neutral characters, because it's just so funny. Like Argyle, him too. He's definitely, well, I wouldn't say he's chaotic, but he's just a neutral character. He doesn't necessarily make anything good, but he doesn't make anything
Yuri-
bad. He's just there.
Yuri is there for Yuri.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
he's there for himself, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned that everything kind of falls into this D&D background because, of course, you and I are on the same page. I feel like the world is so in love with Eddie. I feel like I remember when Eddie dies in the finale, TikTok, Instagram, any social media I went on after the volume 2 aired, everyone was mourning Eddie's death. Like the
Mm.
world loves Eddie. Like they literally have made like a in Indiana in a corn field. They literally like did like an alien crop out of his face doing like the devil like tongue out
Mm.
thing. That's literally in Indiana now.
Yep.
And like he is just beloved. His character is beloved because he plays that outcast, like that person that's always been seen as a screw up, that is kind of a social outcast who's lovable, who, is he's just such a wonderful character.
Yeah.
And when he died, like that hit hard. Like I kind of sensed that he was going to die. Like
Yeah.
the show was not very what's the word?
Oh, they didn't hide the fact that someone was going to die. It was a
No.
little, it was a little awkward in a way because they were just like, the way they kept talking was like, one of us is going to die. Oh, who's going to be the one that, like, they almost
like
literally
in the
just
finale,
said,
like they kept
who's
having these
going to die?
interactions.
It's like,
They kept having these
okay.
interactions between the characters of like, what if we don't make it through
Like
this
Robin.
time?
Yeah. Didn't Robin mention
Right.
at least 3 times, one of us is going to die? And it's like, okay,
Well,
don't make it obvious or something.
And literally every episode that Eddie is in, he mentions how he's a coward or like that he's always run away. Like he says it every single episode, almost to the point where I was kind of frustrated by that because I was like, I liked hearing it. I would have liked hearing it at the beginning of the show, and I would have liked hearing it up to the finale.
Yeah.
Because it would have made it feel more realistic. But like since he said it all the time of like, I always run away, or I wouldn't have jumped in the water after you if the girls didn't. And it's just like, okay, they're setting you up to be the tragic hero that saves everyone.
Yeah.
Like,
Because he says he's not the hero. He's like, oh, we're not the
right. He
heroes
says
here.
I'm not a hero. Like I'm a coward. And but it didn't make his sacrifice any less impactful. Like it was beautiful. Like it was sad and it was tragic and it was dark. Like I was just like, oh my god, like they're literally eating his body apart. I was like, this is horrifying. And then thankfully, I think what causes it is Hopper and Murray killing all the Demogorgon, Demodogs, whatever in Russia that causes all the bats to fall. That part's still kind of weird, but it's that whole mentality of like it's a hive mind. Like if there's
they're connected.
right, they're all connected. But I mean, it was just so beautiful, that scene where like Dustin's holding Eddie and Eddie just smiles up at him, and I just remember how like I loved the interaction between the two of them, and like there's this moment I started like choking up when like Dustin's holding him and Eddie smiles at him and he's like, you're gonna be fine, we're gonna take you to a doctor. And Eddie, like his line, he literally just goes like, okay, like he just says like, okay, like yeah, sure, Dustin, like
Yeah.
and I just started choking up. And then I found out that the line where Eddie says, I love you, man, was improv. That wasn't actually in the script. And he says that, and like, oh my gosh, like it was just.
And you hear like Eddie talk about how he was jealous because he talks with Steve, and he's like, man, like Henderson loves you.
How he's real.
It's kind of annoying that like you're so great, and he was like, I hear all this stuff about Steve. It's like, how could Steve be the popular, attractive guy who apparently is not a douchebag? And it's like, right. Yeah, he really is. Like Steve did suck, but he got legit slapped in the face and realized I suck and I have to change. And Eddie was like annoyed because he's like, man, you're awesome. I didn't want to like you, but I love you too. You're a great guy. And like, it was really cool. I was so surprised like how cool of a character they made him. And now I know there's theories, I don't know if you've read them, that like he could come back to life. There's this weird like D&D thing, and I've read where people have also I think it's cool. I mean, I don't know if they will. I mean, Stranger Things, like the Duffer Brothers definitely have confirmed like, hey, yeah, Eddie is dead, so maybe they'll bring him back. But like,
it's like what is it, Kaz the Immortal or something like
Yes.
that?
So a little excerpt that I have right here. So we have this thing. It says the theory rests, and I'll put this in our chat, on a Dungeons and Dragons character named Cass the Destroyer. So in
Oh,
D&D lore, Cass, Kas, is Vecna's most trusted lieutenant, but after years of service, he betrays his master. The two battled, Vecna was injured, and Cass became a vampire. From there, they waged an endless war of attrition, though Cass was nearly destroyed in a later destruction of the two realms. Now, Cass was mentioned in Season 4, Episode 1, during Eddie Munson's D&D game. That, combined with the fact that Eddie was killed by bats, which is, kind of vampiric in a way, has some fans giddy with the idea that Eddie could make a comeback. Specifically, they think that Vecna will resurrect him as his lieutenant because, yes, he was killed in the Upside Down by a little bit of different means than your typical person, because usually it's a sucking of them in and like draining them.
Yeah, and as far as we know, he's still in the Upside Down. Dustin wouldn't have been
Yes.
able to bring him back.
Yes. And so it says Vecna may resurrect him as lieutenant, and that Eddie will eventually betray Vecna, such as Cass did. And then there's another lot of other reasons. So I'll post this one in the chat for people. But yeah, so that is a working theory that some people have, that, hey, maybe Eddie isn't dead. Because as far as like shows go, there is always a way to read like, okay, what character is doing really good, who do the fans love, and like you're gonna kind of wage your things, like I say things, you're gonna kind of gauge your storyline to appeal to that, right? Like if we take like sitcoms, like, I don't know, I'll just pick Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy's been around for a long time, right? And you have characters, because it's such a long show, or even The Office, you can do that too. Like,
Yeah.
there's always going to be characters that come and characters that go. And typically characters that go are probably leaving because there could be conflict in the real world, or like their character's not doing that well, right? They're not as popular on the show. And so they leave, and then a new season brings fresh faces, and then, oh, this person's doing really well. Okay, let's keep him as the doctor in this show and keep him going, or, let's make them the new manager at the Dunder Mifflin, right? And so with Eddie, if we had probably like a bar chart of popularity, he's up there. His chart is very much up there. Yo, for sure. I mean, I remember in Family Guy, this is hilarious. Brian the dog, he got killed one time. Now, he was literally killed because it showed that no one really liked Brian all that much. So they killed his character, and they, like, no joke, the world revolted. They were like, how'd you kill Brian? Blah, blah. And legit, they brought Brian back in like 8 episodes. It took like another month or so, and they literally brought him back because people wanted him back. And so his popularity rose. And so with Eddie, I almost do wonder. It's like, at the end of the day, yeah, Stranger Things is a way to make some money, to make appeal. And like, you gotta appeal to your fans. Fans are really loving Eddie. I love Eddie. And it's like, maybe they will try to bring him back. Maybe Cass the Destroyer is gonna be a vibe that they're gonna try to bring in season 5. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very much of the thought that I want the creative freedom of the directors and the writers to be able to do what they want without force of, the audience.
100%.
But at the same time, bringing him back would make sense in the world of Stranger Things, because like you said, which is very true, it's all sourced and based on Dungeons and Dragons and Kaz, or I don't know
It's
if I'm
like
butchering the name.
Kas. I'm not really like Kaz or Cass. I don't know.
Yeah, Kaz is a character within D&D, and honestly, the majority of the audience that watches Stranger Things are probably not well versed in D&D.
Yeah.
Like, truthfully, and so it would be enough of a surprise for the majority of people watching the show being like, oh, Eddie's back, but he's an immortal evil villain now. But I love that idea. I love the idea of Eddie coming back as this kind of undead being that does not remember who he is.
And maybe like Dustin has to help him out or something.
Right. Or like, but I could totally see him being kind of the catalyst, being the hero again of like weakening Vecna to let Eleven finish him off. Like I could totally see that. And I feel like that would be such a great move on the Duffer Brothers to do that for season 5. Because yeah, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I
I
think
mean,
that
it
would be
would,
such a great move.
in a way, like, it would kind of hurt because, like, now, obviously, like, yes, like Billy, he was a bad character. Now, I do feel like Billy truly did repent at the end when he looked at Max and was like, I'm sorry. Those were his last words, was apologizing. And like, we know that it was Vecna who was talking as Billy in her mind, so it wasn't truly him. And like, if they brought a character like Eddie back, it would almost make me be like, darn, I wish you could do that to Billy too, because like Max was so hurt. It's like, oh, maybe because now that's more of a matter of like, obviously Billy being killed in the real world versus like Eddie, you know, being, yeah, like, I mean, Billy was pierced, right? Eddie was more of like bit, but so is Steve. And Steve, like, he made it out, right? Like, he got attacked by the same thing. I honestly, when I saw that scene happen, I actually thought Eddie didn't die because, like, Steve, he looked like he was getting gouged by those bats.
Yeah, I mean, he got flesh chunk taken.
Yeah. Whereas, like,
I remember when Volume 1 ended, and a lot of people were worried about that. They were like, "Oh my god!"
I was so scared. I was like, "Steve can't die.
Is he gonna become like sick or something?"
Oh yeah.
And no, but it makes sense with Eddie. It really does for him to, because you think about it too, and I do want to get to this after this moment, but when 11 basically brings Max back to life, like she basically restarts her heart. She doesn't bring her out of a coma. She doesn't take her out of this brain dead state that she's in, because Vecna has consumed her soul in a way. Like, we have confirmed that, because when 11 goes into Max's mind in the hospital,
she can't find her.
She can't find her. It's darkness. That means her soul isn't there. Her brain is not active.
Because wasn't that her mom, like 11's mom? Wasn't she kind of like that when she was trying to learn about her mom? It was all like dark and stuff.
Yeah. And so that tells me Vecna has a hold of her.
Yeah.
Like, he has, and in order to save Max, Vecna has to die. And so with that, you know, with 11 being able to do that, it makes me wonder, like, 11 and 1 can basically do the same things. What's stopping Vecna / Henry, from finding Eddie's body and doing the exact same thing, restarting his heart?
Yeah.
And being like, you're coming with me, and I'm going to hurt them by making you fight them. You know, like, because it will hurt them a lot more coming from a familiar face kind 100%. Of thing. I could totally see that happening. In fact, I would be shocked if it didn't. I honestly, the more we talk about it, it just makes more sense to me. Like, this would be what happens. I'm gonna be sad if it doesn't, and I'm sure half the world will be too. But
because, like, also, I mean, if we had, like, obviously we know, because when Vecna got pushed out of the house, he like disappears, right? And so obviously he is around, and then, you know, Will, he can sense him and stuff. And so it's like, yes, bringing back Vecna as a villain would be like a thing that we would know, but that would be such a cool, like, if Eddie is another villain. Yeah, it's like, oh, that's like our new villain for season 5. Like, because Vecna's literally always been there, so who's like the new guy? And it's like, oh, it's Eddie, and he's like a vampire or whatever. Like, that would be like crazy.
Right. Like, what if Eddie has to be the front man, because what if Vecna is weak and he has to hide, even though he's won, and they're probably just going to pursue him. They're like, okay, we got to go in there and take him out again. Yeah. And they go back in there, and Eddie's waiting for them.
Because they definitely did damage, right? They truly did. I mean, totally Hopper and Enzo, they really did fight that, you know, the Demogorgon, who was obviously part of the hive. And like the kids, I mean, they lit him on fire and were just shotgun him. That was awesome. And so he got attacked, and then obviously from a spirit level, right, like 11 attacked him. So he truly did get very much damaged. I wouldn't be surprised if he needs another lackey to just kind of hey, I need you to go out and, find me some more bodies. Now that the rift is obviously open because Hawkins is
Yeah.
now wide open to the upside down. It's like, okay, I need you to command this little army for me and go give me some strength and
And could
bring me
you
back.
imagine? Because already Eddie is still uh, enemy number one in
He is.
Hawkins. They're
He's a
still
villain.
talking about Eddie as like he led this Hellfire Club,
He's
and
the one
like,
that murdered Chrissy and stuff.
right. And so if he shows up with these demons, the town is just gonna, in the crazy way that it is probably gonna be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I assume they probably think he killed Jason too. Because really, he's just disappeared, right? And
Yeah.
so like I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, like if Eddie shows up almost looking normal because it's like Hawkins, and like maybe he changes forms if he goes to the upside down, but like if they try to make him look very normal, but he's just
Yeah.
not. He's
Yeah.
changed.
It's crazy. It's kind of switching gears a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah, for
because
sure.
I definitely want to touch on Max real quick.
Yeah,
Who,
yeah.
honestly, for me, Max is kind of the MVP of this season. In a way, I feel like Sadie Sink um, is an app like she blew me away this season. This actress, like this
Yeah.
girl, like she was incredible, and just um, heading
She
into
was Annie. She was an Annie at one point
she
on
was, yeah.
Broadway.
But like I mean, we don't have to talk about her whole story in the
No,
season.
hey, it's fine.
But
Yeah.
like, I remember how I love how she almost has this survivor's guilt, um, of like Billy surviving, right, and like her monologue to really draw Vecna to her, but also there's this truth in it of what she's saying of like, I truly wish that something terrible would happen to you, and then it did. And then I started thinking, I wish something terrible would happen to me. And I just remember, as someone who has struggled with depression in my life, as someone who admittedly had thoughts of harm in my head, like to know her character, and I could kind of see it in the beginning of the season. Like she was obviously different than in this, like, because Max was always really bright and bubbly and strong, like just like the other kids. And then in season 4, she just had seemed so depressed and subdued. And to know like that she had been thinking about harming herself, or really that she kind of in a way wished that she were dead. And then of course that draws Vecna to her, that darkness, that the negative thoughts. When she doesn't survive it, and when the bones start to break, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, like they're going to kill her.
Yeah.
Like they're going to kill her.
Yeah.
And when she drops into Lucas's arms and is wailing, which is so real and just like harrowing to hear, like him just like sounding like a child, just being like, no, like stay with me, like Erica, help, like calling out for his sister, which he never wants her help. And Max's final lines being like, I don't want to go. I'm not ready.
I'm not
like
ready.
Realizing
Because she tried to say that she was. She was trying to be like, oh, I'm ready for this.
Right. Like she was trying, like, and I think a part of her truly thought she was. I think a part of her wanted to die. Like I think after what happened to Billy, what happened to her family, because you see like her mom is financially destitute. They're living in a trailer park. They're not doing well. And I'm sure Max is in some way blaming herself for all of that. And Vecna, of course, playing with her mind throughout the season and drawing his attention to her because of that mental state that she's in. Just, it was beautiful to me how in her final moments, I mean, it was still so sad, but like it just when she's like, I'm not ready. Lucas, I don't want to go. I'm not ready. And
because she couldn't see, right? Wasn't that one of the things too?
Yeah, she's like, Lucas,
like,
I can't
see anything.
I can't see anything. I'm scared. I'm like tearing up just even like picturing it. Like it's just like the acting was just so good. Like they were so incredibly moving and heartfelt, and it was just tragic. Like I was just like, oh my God, like this is such a true and beautiful interpretation of suicidal people, of people that are depressed and struggle with suicidal thoughts, and like who get to that brink, and then like either when it's too late, or if they're able to stop themselves, realize like, no, I want to live.
Yeah.
It's just, it was beautiful. It was such a beautifully interpreted moment. And the fact that she was brought back, I know a lot of people say it's a cop out. Like I've read that a lot online of like people saying, oh, they should have just killed her off. Like it's such a cop out that they allowed 11 to bring her back to life. I don't see it that way. I honestly see it as like, no, like she deserves to live.
Yeah.
Like she can't die like that. Like it would be
Yeah.
so.
Especially
It would
with
be
like her role that she has done. I mean, like the influence that she had on 11 was huge. Like that was
Oh,
a
yeah.
very big
She helped her
turning
become a
point.
girl.
Yeah.
She helped her become a teenage girl. Like,
Yeah,
it's
because she really like, 11 had just been surrounded by men and boys, right? Like
boys.
Hopper, and then all the kids who were, their goofy, nerdy selves, and it's like without Max, she wouldn't have had that very huge character development, which is obviously like why 11 wants to help her so much. I mean, out of all the kids that she interacts with, I mean, obviously she loves Mike, she loves Hopper, but she definitely loves Max. Like she has such a strong connection. I would say that Max is definitely like her best friend, because they just the way they clicked was intense. And and
I agree.
I don't see that as a cop out like at all. I think if anything, we're seeing more of the powers that 11 has, also in turn potentially the powers that like one has, or Henry. And
But it's very anime in a sense, because it's
Yeah.
literally like you're powered by hatred and negativity.
yeah
Whereas 11 is powered by love and friendship.
Yeah.
Like friendship is magic, It's like the
Yeah.
Taylor all the time. But it's like the reason she's able to finally beat Vecna is Mike saying, I love you. Like 11, you can do this. I love you. Like he's finally able to say it to her. And that's what, overwhelms her emotionally, and she's able to stop him. It's simple. It's it's done all the time, but like it works. Like
it really does.
Like, there's nothing more powerful than love in any kind of story. And so I don't care. I love it.
Yeah, we're on the same style of topic. Were you surprised with the way that they started out Mike and 11? Because so we're introduced to season 4 Mike and 11, to where it felt a little awkward, right? Like Mike, he goes to California, and obviously it's also like every season they like to make their characters like evolve. Like we see it a lot in Mike's mom. She literally always has this different style each season. His sister truly always kind of changes each season as well. And then like with Mike, so he comes to California, he kind of has this like surfer bro kind of vibe. And obviously like 11 is head over heels for him when he first shows up. But you see this like him trying to act like a cool kid in a way, and it's kind of weird. And obviously there's also like the tension with Will, and that's like a whole nother thing in itself. But like, we leave off with like Mike not being able to handle the fact that 11 left. And I was curious about how it would work, because they're kids working on a long distance relationship before the amazing use of a cell phone, right? Of like a nice cell phone. And it's like, how would they survive being so far from each other? And so like, how did you feel whenever that initial reaction of the two of them was that maybe it's one-sided, maybe it's just 11 loving Mike? Because like she has that scene where she's like, from Mike, from Mike, from Mike, from Mike. And there's like, he never ended his cards with love Mike. And then at the end, like it took him obviously some time to think and realize like, holy crap, I do love her, because now that she's gone, I just want her back. Like I need her. How did you feel though with that introduction of them not being like lovey?
It's hard. It's kind of how I feel about the whole Nancy love triangle with Jonathan and Steve. Of like, I feel like when it comes to the love stories, outside of Joyce and Hopper, which I feel like is very well paced. I feel like it that feels natural. And I mean, honestly, you could argue that they're teenagers, so it's complicated, and you go
Oh
from Will
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Mike is a hard character for me, man. I feel like as the show continues on, I feel like this is with Jonathan as well. Mainly Jonathan and Mike out of all the characters. I feel like the writers don't really know what to do with them anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
And it almost
Truly.
makes it seem like they don't want to be in it. Like when I watch Mike act and Jonathan act, because I think because of how their characters are written, I'm always like, do they want to be in the show anymore? Like, do they really care? Because it almost seems like their characters are kind of just like, meh, I'm here.
I mean, that could be. I don't know. I think with Mike, it's a little hard because obviously the central relationship is Mike and Eleven, which makes sense because Mike was the main character, along with Eleven in season one, where honestly Mike was the strongest in season one.
Oh,
We
yeah.
loved Mike because
Yeah.
he was that kid. He was the every kid. He was the kid that you were supposed to latch onto in his friend group, of being like, whoa, like he's great. And as Mike has grown up, I feel like feels I feel like he articulate the lines. I don't know if I believed him when he was saying the lines to Eleven, but I trusted the dialogue when he was saying, I felt like I wasn't worthy of you. Like I almost pushed you away because I felt like I forget exactly what he says when he's talking to her when she's fighting Vecna, but like you know, he's like, I pushed you away because I was afraid I would lose you, and I didn't want to be hurt, and I didn't think you would need me anymore, and you don't need me at all. You're Superman,
Yeah.
you're a
You're a
superhero.
superhero.
You don't need me. Like I'm just a normal Joe Schmo. And so yeah, he reacts as a teenager would and just kind of distances himself, naturally. And but I love that he's honest with his
Yeah.
feelings. Like that's the one Mike scene in this whole season that I liked was him telling her that he loves her. That was the catalyst of his whole story because honestly,
Yeah.
Mike did not have much of an arc
No.
this season.
No,
He did
he
not
didn't.
get much to do.
No.
And in all of the arcs, because obviously we have 4 different story arcs going on in this season, all the different characters. Honestly, the California crew outside of 11, like Jonathan, Argyle, Will, and Mike, their storyline was the weakest storyline to me. They really didn't have much going on whatsoever.
They didn't.
And I love Will. I love his character. I love how much of an outcast he's more becoming. But when he gives the picture to Mike and saying like you're the heart, like I don't believe that. Like I'm just like I believe that from the Mike in season 1. I don't believe that of the Mike in season 4. I just don't see it. Like I don't see
like
him
even
as
his
the heart.
season 3 was like stronger because that was when he was having some of his like girlfriend conflicts and stuff, but like you still got that ringleader. And then like when the things gotten more serious because they she discovered the whole Billy thing, like he was able to be like, okay, yeah, this is serious time. And he took a little bit more of a leadership role that he needed to. It was very strong even in season 3. And 4, it was just like, I'm just here, that's it.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe he was supposed to have. Maybe the writers were like, we want to have a season where Mike has kind of lost his way,
Yeah.
where he doesn't really know how to be the heart anymore, and Will has to remind him. And Will does remind him because he finally, like, he even says to him, like, "You're the heart." Like, as cheesy as the delivery of that was, he's like, "Mike, talk to her. You're the heart." And like, Mike's like, "Oh yeah, like I need to talk to her." And maybe that's the point. But it was so frustrating.
Yeah, and I do think because you were mentioning how you're like you hope it's sincere and you're kind of taking it like as a truthful statement. I feel like it is sincere because the writers do give a clear opposite of that, and I find that with Jonathan's character, because like we see literally until the final episode, like the final 30 minutes, that Jonathan's like, I want to break up with Nancy. I don't even want to be with her anymore. I can't do this. And Argyle's like, bro, stop playing with her and break up with her. You're being kind of a jerk. And then literally the last 20 or so minutes of the show, Jonathan does that very annoying, like, hey, Nancy, are we okay? Like, I want you to tell me that something's wrong and I want you to break up with me. And so that's why, in my mind, when I look at it from a writing perspective, I do think that Mike's character is sincere in that moment of saying, like, 11, I do love you. Like, I feel like you're so awesome that I'm not worthy. And I think that's true because we see that clear opposite. And that is Jonathan's character. Like, his character is very like, I want to push Nancy away, but I want her to be the one to break up because she should be the bad guy. And it's kind of like, bro, that's a real jerky thing to do.
Well, it's hard with Jonathan too because, you know, I really feel like season 1, Jonathan had a very strong arc.
He was so good.
Right, he was so good because he was the guy that you rooted for, other than Steve, who was the guy that you hated, and it flipped.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that the writers saw that flip. They saw that what they did with Steve's arc really resonated with audiences. That people, honestly, Steve is probably the most popular character on the show. Like, literally, I think he's
had some of the most growth for sure.
He's had some of the most growth. He's basically a mom to the kids.
Yeah.
And his scenes with Nancy just felt so. The chemistry was palpable. I was like, oh my gosh, let them be together already. They're beautiful together. And like I loved his whole monologue about having a family of 6 kids, going to the beach. Like, I loved that. And I was worried because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like one of those monologues you hear right before someone dies.
I know.
But then like it very much feels like the show is gearing us towards, okay, like Jonathan is going to start coming away and Steve is coming back in.
Yeah.
And I hope it does go that route, honestly. I am kind of worried about Jonathan's character. I wonder if they're going to kill him, honestly, because I don't understand what they're doing with him anymore. You know, like he's just kind of in this perpetual drug-induced state with Argyle all season. He doesn't.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
He doesn't really have any sense of where he wants to go with his life. No. He feels very lost. The one moment that I really loved with him was him being there for Will, because he's, out of everyone, he sees Will's pain. Yeah. No one else does. Not even Mike, which is shocking to me.
Oh, it's like, so crazy because it's so in your face. Like, Mike, he loves you. He really cares about you.
Like, well, and like I just have to hold it to the fact that one, he's a teenager, and honestly, like, Mike as the 11-year-old in season 1 that literally was going to jump off of a cliff to save his friends, and would do anything to find Will, his best friend, is not the same Mike that we have in season 4. He's a teenager. He has 11, and I know a lot of people are frustrated by that, but that's very true to life. Like as we grow up, we change. Like, we're not the same people we used to be. Yeah. And Mike not seeing that Will is literally, like, you know, crying into his hand, weeping into his hand, because he was saying how he felt about Mike, not what 11 felt about Mike. Yeah. Like, how Mike didn't see that is so frustrating. I know. But I get it. Like, Mike is so stuck in his head about how to handle 11. And he has been since season 3, honestly. Honestly, since 11 showed up, probably. Oh, yeah. He's so lovesick. But, like, so was Will. And that moment in the pizza shop when Jonathan is like, you know, like, I love you and I see you and you're going to be okay. Like, I loved that moment. I was like, there's the Jonathan I love. Like, there's the guy I like. Like, I wish there was more of him this season. And my worry is that I truly feel, I know we've theorized about season 5 a little bit with Eddie. I truly feel like Will is going to play a big part in the final season. I feel like his connection with Vecna is going to play something major. Oh, it has. I don't know what it is, but I truly believe it. And I think that Jonathan is going to sacrifice himself or do something for Will.
Yeah.
Is my thought.
Because now we're left off with everyone in Hawkins, right? Because isn't Argyle
Everyone,
like
yeah,
Argyle and Jonathan, like everybody's in Hawkins come the
yeah,
end, and like we end with that walk up to the field of just destruction. And so it's like season
yeah.
5 is going to
Gray
begin.
flowers.
Yeah, it's like season 5 is either going to begin like right after, or they may do something, one of those like it's been a few months and we're in the apocalypse. You know, however they're going to start it. It's like, yeah, where are some of these
Right.
characters going to lie? Like, where's, you know, depending on how much time is passing, like where will Jonathan be? Where will you know, will Argyle kind of come back? Where's Mike going to be? Is, you know, is Lucas still going to be beside Max's side, or is he going to have to be doing other things? Because it's just like, where are they going to start? Is it right after, or is it some time has passed and we're like now battling demonic stuff? Who knows? You know, it's that.
Yeah, it's exciting. It
It
makes me
is.
excited for the final season. I'm ready for the end. Um, I truly feel like they'll do the end justice. I feel like they just care about this show so much, and they've done such a great job. It's honestly my favorite Netflix show.
Yeah.
They just do such a great job with it. Gosh, I really hope that they do Will, they don't do Will dirty. I feel like
Yeah.
every
I know.
season Will just keeps getting hit harder and harder, and
I
I wonder
know.
if it's on purpose. I wonder if it's to make Will a villain, or you know,
But I don't know, because like
oh,
you would think that with what he's gone through at this point, he almost would be a villain. Like, I don't know if it would drag out to be a villain to season 5. It could. It totally could, because there's a lot
yeah,
of people that are oblivious to it. But I think that love with Jonathan really does help. And I mean, like his mom really loves him too. And like, you know,
Joyce.
obviously like Jonathan does notice him and stuff. So I could see where maybe not necessarily making him a villain, but I totally feel like, I mean, his connection to the Upside Down and to what we now know has been Vecna this whole time has been so strong. Like 11 can sense him and can like try to go into like Vecna's kind of mind in a way,
Will
but
can
Will,
feel it.
yeah, Will physically can feel him and is always the first one to feel him. Like whenever
Yes.
it comes time to like Vecna's near or anything, Will senses it first before anybody. Like it's like he senses it, and then 11 also kind of starts noticing things. Like it's always been Will first.
That's such a great point, because maybe that's his maybe that's his arc, right? What if
Yeah.
he's the secret sauce? What if he's
Yeah.
the guy
He knows.
to find the weak? Like, what if he is the one to find Vecna?
Yeah.
What if he's like, we gotta find Vecna, and Will is the one to find him?
Because he's always said he's
Like-
here. Like I think I'm pretty sure it was season 2 when they're in the arcade, and like he has that almost like like trip where he's like all of a sudden the arcade's in the Upside Down, and then he sees
Yep.
the mind flare, right? Like he's always been the one to say he's here and I know it. And it's almost like is Vecna noticing that Will's this guy, because like it just keeps happening. Like Will keeps on noticing even after that like exorcism happened with Will. Maybe he thought that was it, but like Will just keeps on noticing it. And it's like, does Vecna notice that this is going on anymore? Because it seems like after season 2, he hasn't cared about Will.
What if Vecna sensed that in him from the beginning, and that's why he targeted Will?
Could be, because he was the first. He was like that
You're-
first target.
You're blowing my mind right now, man. 'Cause I'm thinking about that, and it makes so much sense. And I'm just like, so why did he pick Will?
Because like the day stopped when Will was captured, right?
Yeah.
And so
What
like
if Will had powers, and we just like don't know?
exactly. Yeah. I mean, it totally could be like that. Will does have something. I mean, to be able to sense Vecna's got to mean something. I mean, obviously, like he kind of became part of him in a way, but like still, I mean, Vecna's kind of been a part of some people, but it consumed them and literally destroyed them. Will survived. Will has still
Bottom
survived
out.
all this. Yeah. So I do, yeah. I think season 5 is gonna give Will some secret powers. And I mean,
Hmm.
wasn't his character a mage whenever he
Yeah,
was in D and
yeah.
D?
He was always the wizard. He was always
So,
the
like magic powers, right? Maybe he's gonna
yeah.
have something. Maybe he could be that secret sauce to finding Vecna because he's like a radar in a sense,
Level up to stage, like give
Yeah,
him the.
yeah. Because like if he was in Hawkins that whole time, I feel like he would have been able to find Vecna. Like the kids had to
Yeah.
find Vecna through the means of like, hey, we have the compass and we're able to find like these rifts and stuff. But like if Will was there, he probably could have literally just stood there and been like, I sense him and found him. And but like since he wasn't, it was like, what are they gonna do? And I think that was definitely done on purpose. It's like, okay, we have to keep Will out of Hawkins for a reason. And I think that reason is because he's almost like a Vecna radar and they're gonna need him now more than ever because the upside
I
down is pouring into Hawkins.
Dude, I agree with you 100%. I just can't wait for season 5 so we can literally text each other and be like, bro, we called it.
I know. I
There's
know. I
something.
mean, I guess so. I guess what 2024 could be potentially when maybe we'll see the final.
Yeah, I would say 2024.
Mm.
Most likely they're gonna split it into two again. Because I can't see us ever going back to just 45-minute episodes. We're gonna stay this course most likely.
Yeah,
Um,
what were the 6 episodes? Were they about an hour a piece? A little
yeah,
over?
like 45 to an hour.
Mm.
The episode 7 was an hour and a half.
Okay.
And then the final two
It's like
episodes
two
were an hour and
something.
40 minutes and then 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, I hope they do that again. I thought that was
I
like
honestly do too. I do too.
the best model to like do it because you got enough because 6 episodes or 7 episodes made you want more, and then those final 2 were like nice. That gave
Yeah.
me what I needed. It's also like what
You just sit
anime
down
does.
and finish it. Yeah.
Like when you watch an anime that has like maybe like 24 episodes and then it has a movie and you're just like
Yeah.
now it's over. Like Brotherhood, whenever I watch
Oh,
Full Metal Alchemist, I watch the whole series and then I watch the movie that comes afterwards and it just gives it that nice bow. I'm like, oh, that's the best way to do it. Show, movie, call it a day.
Brotherhood is a masterpiece, man. Like,
Suck it.
dude, it's just so freaking good. I rewatch Brotherhood probably once every 5 years.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
and I
it's
just
so
never get
good.
tired of it. I'm just
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah, doing shows and ending on movies is just a smart thing. So I hope that season 5 has something very similar to it for sure.
great. Well, should we end our show with our what we're playing and what we recommend? Would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I will say too, I will put it at the start of the podcast for all of our podcast specific listeners out there. The recording started a little bit later, but I was able to grab right when Max starts talking about Stranger Things. So there's going to be a little disconnect. So I do apologize ahead of time, but I will kind of explain that in post for all of our peer podcast listeners. If you were here live, you heard all our Lord of the Rings talks, so you probably just missed out on that. So make sure to check us out live because we always go over things that aren't always in the podcast later on in the live show. So, but yeah, I say let's just chit chat a little bit more on what we're playing currently and our entertainment of the week, and we'll probably start calling it from there.
Awesome, man. So honestly, I haven't been playing much, if I'm being honest. I've been, for some reason, on a Yakuza kick lately.
Mhm.
I've been wanting a sequel to Like a Dragon real bad, so I went back and I've never played any of the old Yakuza games except for Yakuza Kiwami, which is Yakuza 1. Um, and so I went back and I played and 100%ed Yakuza Zero, which was phenomenal. And now I'm playing Yakuza Kiwami 2. And I don't know, I'll probably take a break after this one, but I was still in the Yakuza mode, and so I was like, I'll keep playing it. But I want to see if I can get through the Kazuma Kiryu storyline and go all the way to Yakuza 6. We'll see.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what you've been getting your hands in on. Has that been on PlayStation?
Yeah, that's on PlayStation. PlayStation 4, but I'm playing it on my PlayStation 5. And I've also been playing. What else have I been playing? Been replaying Bravely Default on my DS, on my
Oh,
3DS.
nice.
And honestly, just waiting to see if Live Alive is going to be worth my time on the
Mm.
Switch in a few weeks. And Stray, I might pick up Stray. I actually kind of love the idea of playing as a cat. I'll wait to see what the reviews are like, but I did sign up for PS Extra, so I will get to play it for free if I decide to play it. But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Sweet. Yeah, I haven't had too much like crazy exciting things. I've just been playing some League of Legends. It's
Nice.
kind of like my person versus person style video game, and then I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft right now. We're kind of in this interesting period in WoW where it's like the new expansion Dragonflight just hit alpha, so there's a lot of people that are, like those streamers and stuff. They're like getting some of their alpha preview going on. There's like a new dragon race that's coming, so I've just been getting my tunes all geared up and kind of like ready for a new expansion. So I tell you, I haven't played anything on the PlayStation. Or I'm actually going through God of War on my live stream over on Twitch. So I have been doing the God of War
Prepare
again.
for
Yeah, for
That's
Ragnarok
smart.
come in November.
Yeah, we play it to be ready for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So I am starting God of War over again. And then I kind of play a little bit of my DS. I've been playing Professor Layton. I too am actually waiting for a Switch game. Coincidentally enough, I can't say I remember the name off the top of my head. I actually just saw it as a preview one time, and it was something about like a bear or something. I don't know. I truly don't remember, but it had like interesting graphics where I was like, "What is this? Is this a game?" Like, I was like, "Is this like a Stardew Valley, but like you're like a bear or something?" I couldn't really tell, so I needed to like look into that. So I too am kind of like trying to
Just
wait
be honest
for.
with us. Just be honest with us. You're wanting to play Care Bears. It's fine. It's fun
Yeah,
time.
it could be. I have no idea. I truly saw it just briefly and was like, "Wait, that looks cool. What is that?" So, but yeah, so I'm just playing World of Warcraft and League of Legends, and haven't been gaming. Well, I've been gaming a lot because World of Warcraft takes a lot of my time, but haven't been doing too much like console or like other game, which we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. Things have been like kind of dry. We're just kind of coasting right now, waiting for some stuff to come out, and
Yeah.
things get delayed, and hopefully it means that they're just going to be better whenever they do come out.
I'm just waiting for 2024, 2025 when these Unreal Engine 5 games from all the studios for PS5 finally get released and we get
Oh,
to
I
just have
know.
another amazing time of amazing video games. I can't wait. It's normal. We have a few lull years every 5 years or so when it comes to video games because studios are trying to figure out the new systems and the new graphic and possibilities and everything like that. And so it makes sense, but
Mhm.
I'm ready for it to be over.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and I found the game. It's called Bear and Breakfast, like bed and breakfast. You're literally a bear who owns a B&B for like other animals, and it looks, I don't know, man. It just looks kind of interesting. It looks almost like Sims
Oh
in a
my
way.
God. He's
And
wearing
like,
like the King of the Hill hat.
I
Oh,
know, dude. I'm telling you, I have no idea when this thing comes out, but I saw it was for the Switch, and I was like, wait, I kind of want to play this. So yeah, it's called Bear and Breakfast. I don't know if it has a release date. I think it just sort of says sometime this year. And I'm like, I think I
that.
oddly want this.
I like the graphics.
Right? That's what I'm
I like
saying.
the,
It looks really cool.
yeah, I like the animation style. Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of those like life sim kind of games, and it kind of gives me that vibe. And that's what this is gonna be. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be
Yeah.
playing this at one point.
So
um,
what would you recommend to people this week, Tyler?
oh man, I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, I can't cop out and just say Stranger Things because this is the Stranger Things spoiler cast. I was like, well, I
Yep.
can't really do that right
Would make a
now.
lot of sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, like I've been reading a lot of stuff recently, and I've been reading a lot of Star Wars stuff. And so one thing that I would totally recommend is getting involved in some like Star Wars like lore. Like there's a lot of Star Wars lore that exists in book form that I had no idea was a thing. So there is like there's like two universes to the Star Wars world. It's I always forget like the two names, but there's pretty much like a canon universe and then a non-canon universe. And the canon universe is everything that has existed since Star Wars was bought by Disney. So if you're able to like publish your book with like the official seal, like that's a canon thing. So something like Star Wars Master and Apprentice, which is a book about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan before Phantom Menace, like those are all considered canon storylines. And there is one about like the High Republic, which is a series of Star Wars that existed before Phantom Menace, like hundreds of years. I think Yoda is still around just because Yoda's so old. But I
Yeah.
think like he's young kind of a thing in this series. And it's like peak of this of like Jedi because you still have Coruscant, which is like the headquarters of the Jedi Hoarders as well as the Republic and stuff. But like obviously Chancellor Palpatine hasn't put his influence into it. So they're actually, they're good people. And obviously like the
Yeah.
Jedi are good people. And this book talks about, Jedis, but it gives it this almost expanse series vibe because you don't
Ooh.
just get the story told to you from Jedis, but from like lieutenants of just ships and like their workers or just normal humans that live on a planet. Like you get really cool in-depth story about not just Jedis but everyone in like the Star Wars universe and how life is like for people that aren't just special, because if you're a Jedi you're special, you have special powers, you go through rigorous training. And that's what we've seen so much in Star Wars lore because obviously it's like fun. But these books on the High Republic, which I think too have comic books as well, like graphic novels. It's so fun to get that almost like Rogue One vibe, right? Like how Rogue One really had nothing to do with Jedi. It was all just about the people. That's what these books are about. And it's so fun because if you like Star Wars, you're going to like, because there are still Jedi, there's still fun magical powers and everything, but there's still space fights and there's just people who are like lieutenants of star destroyers who are, trying to command their ship to do maneuvers. And you hear about it and you're like, whoa, this is cool. This is like some extra stuff that I didn't know was in the Star Wars lore. So I would say that's kind of like my recommendation is just wherever you're wanting to start. Like I said, there's Master and Apprentice, which is like the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon story, which is nice because it's like a one and done. You just kind of read the book, you get that, oh wow, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan actually butt heads a lot, but this is how they kind of came to be friends. Or you could do something like High Republic, which is a huge storyline of just like a ton of books. It's like wherever you're wanting to start, I just recommend them. Like it's really cool. I never thought I would enjoy Star Wars books, and they're some of my favorite. They're really fun.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. What about yourself? What is your entertainment for the week?
I would say my entertainment of the week is actually a podcast, like ours or show. I guess I don't know. We are a podcast, but you if you listen to us on Apple TV or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're all on there. Calling All Nerds, you can find us.
That's right.
But it's called Pod Meets World, and it is literally a podcast led by Ryder Strong. Oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher her name, Danielle Fisher or something like that, and Will Friedle, who play Eric Matthews, Sean Hunter, and Topanga Lawrence
Oh my
from Boy Meets
gosh,
World.
that's fun.
And it is a podcast literally all about them reliving their days in Boy Meets World. And there's hundreds of podcasts like this now. This one resonates with me because Boy Meets World is my favorite sitcom of all time growing up. Mr. Feeney is like my lifelong teacher, but they literally are just going episode by episode of Boy Meets World and talking about their experiences during that time when they were those kids in 1993. And it's very early. The podcast is very new.
It just started June.
Yeah, it just started in June. They do about 2 episodes a week, surprisingly, or something. They've interviewed, William Daniels, or I butchered his name probably, but Mr. Feeney. They've interviewed him. And I don't know, like I just love it. One of the reasons I love Boy Meets World and why it's one of my favorite shows of all time is just how it didn't feel like a sitcom. It felt very human and earnest and true, and it just had this level of compassion for children and learning how to live in the world and be a moral human being that you really don't see in a lot of sitcoms nowadays. And it's just a really heartwarming podcast to listen to because I'm actually rewatching the show as I listen to it. So like I watched episode 1 and then listened to episode 1 podcast and them talking about the episode and them saying things that I catched in the episode that I never thought about before as a kid. And it's pretty amazing, honestly, to relive Boy Meets World. I love it so much. And if you are a fan of Boy Meets World, I can't recommend the podcast highly enough.
It's almost like a double whammy: the podcast and the show. If you haven't watched Boy Meets World, also watch Boy Meets World. Where are you watching that, by the way?
Disney Plus. The entire show is on.
Oh, I didn't know it was a Disney show. Cool.
Yeah. It was ABC. I think. Yeah, it was TGI Fridays. It was ABC.
Very cool.
I don't know if you ever watched it, but if you haven't, you should totally watch it with Julie. Like, just go through and experience it because it is one of the best sitcoms ever done.
Yeah, never watched it start to finish, but have watched a good bit. Like I've seen the young years, I've seen some of that middle years, I saw some of the college, so I've definitely seen a good bit. But yeah, I've never kind of just watched it start to finish. That'd be cool.
You should, man. It's a trip. It's an experience, and it's a great one. It's a wonderful show. But yeah, that's my recommendation.
Very cool. Well, I think that's definitely going to be it for us today. We got through our Stranger Things spoiler cast, which was fun. As far as our spoiler stuff goes, this is our longest episode for a spoiler thing. We've done like a WandaVision one, we've done the Falcon one, but I think this one was fun. This was a really cool spoiler one. And obviously, like we said, like if you're watching this, hopefully it's because you've seen the show, or maybe you just don't really care too much about listening to spoilers. Doesn't matter. So if you haven't watched the show, we totally recommend it. I mean, it's a great time to watch it. It's easy too. It doesn't take long. No. I mean, obviously season 4 is their longest, but I was able to binge up to season 3 in like 2 to 3 days. Like, it's not a long show. You can really get through it pretty quickly to try to like quote unquote catch up. But
it doesn't overstay its welcome. That's for sure. It's kind of perfectly paced. So.
Yeah, for sure. But so I think that's gonna be it for us. Make sure to follow us on all the things. You can find us on the Nerd Alert on YouTube. You can find us on the Calling All Nerds or Nerd Alert. If you kind of look for both, you'll find us across like Spotify podcasts, Apple podcasts. You can find us on YouTube where we go live, and you kind of get a little bit of a bonus content because I always forget how to actually go live. And so then Max and I start talking, and then we randomly go live, but we're talking about other things. So if you enjoy kind of that and I like to post a lot of stuff in our chat to do like links and everything, so you can kind of follow along with us. You can kind of experience that live, which is cool. But our YouTube also has all of our podcasts archived, so you can watch them on YouTube if you want to as well on a later date, if maybe listening to it on a podcast site isn't your thing, or you just want to see our faces because we're so handsome. So there's also that too. But that's going to be it for us. Max, any other thing you want to add on our closing statements?
No, just go out, enjoy your days, be more like Eddie, and just learn how to play Master of Puppets on guitar. No, just thank you all for your patience for new episodes. It's just a crazy time in the world right now, and we got a lot going on, but just thank you for all of you that are dedicated to watching the show. We know we have a small audience. We don't care. We just love doing it. This is a great outlet for us, and we're just thankful to anyone that listens, and we hope that you all have a blessed weekend and just have a wonderful week to come.
For sure. See you all next time. Bye-bye.
Adios. Bye.